MiG 205 DS Pro is the newest multi-process welder from YesWelder. It is able to run off either 220 or 110 volts, and it can weld up to 5/16 inch steel in a single pass. The machine is compact for its abilities at only 17 inches long, 8 1/4 inches wide, and 14 inches tall, and it only comes in at 22.7 pounds. YesWelder sent this machine out a couple weeks ago to me, and I've been using it ever since on various projects. Primarily, I've been using it on this shipping container. I've got some patches I've been welding on, and putting some wall brackets up and stuff to hold 2x4 walls up. I also used it to repair a trailer and several other things as well. I've put probably about 6 pounds of different types of flux core wire through this machine, and so I feel like I can give a fairly good opinion on whether or not it's a quality machine. Today we're going to test it out and see if it can match up to the specs that YesWelder advertises. Let's go ahead and get started. This machine here, we'll go over the details, is definitely geared towards a professional or hobbyist that might be doing a lot of welding. This is not the largest welder that YesWelder makes by any means. They have a larger machine than this as well, but this is towards the top end of their line of welders. Alright, we've got a welder, we have a box of accessories. Let's go and pull the box out. That's a heavy box. Alright, so like with most of the YesWelder machines, it comes with a sticky chart here that you can put on the inside cover of your welder. We've got an instruction manual and 3 different rollers here. We have an adapter to be able to plug it into a regular wall outlet. We have a gas line. We have stick stinger and a ground clamp. And of course we have our MiG gun right here. Very fancy machine, if I can say so myself. Got a nice big digital display here on the front. Here is our door. Oh, they simplified this. Alright, so this is another thing. I'm pointing this out not because it's groundbreaking in the welding world, but just because it's different from the other YesWelder machines. This here is all you have to take off in order to swap your wire rolls. Welders. The other YesWelders, this whole tensioning system in the middle also has to be removed, and you have to reset the tension every single time you change your spool of wire. Whereas with this one here, you just unscrew this little plastic nut, change your roll, and the tension remains the same. You've got a little knob up here that actually indexes with the roll of wire, and that's how you can do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn it on and see what it looks like on the screen here. Well, first of all, we got to peel the film. Ooh, nice. So it's a very simple display here. We're currently in lift TIG mode, you can see. If we change the weld mode, we hit the weld mode button here, you see there's the red square that bounces across the screen and tells you which mode you're in, and of course the settings change as well. Now here real quick, I'll go mention this. You can see on the side here we are plugged into 110 volts. When you're in 220, of course, that's going to say 220. But for right now, we are plugged into 110. So here on the side, lift TIG, of course, you can control your amperage setting. Goes all the way up to 140 on 110 volts. On 220, you will have more amperage than that. And then, of course, we can go all the way down to 15 amps at our minimum. Alright, so we change our weld mode over to stick. You can see we've got, of course, our amperage settings here that we can change. 140 amps is the maximum output on 110 volts. And it goes all the way down to 20. Now, if we want to use what's called hot start, all you have to do is press this left knob, and you get your hot start setting. And then you can change that over here using this knob here. So you can change the value from 0 to 100. And what it does is the hot start function increases the amperage in the beginning, making it easier to start an arc, improving the weld quality and stability. So if you're struggling to get a good arc, and you're struggling to get it started at least, that can be a good setting to be aware of right there. Now, if you need to, you can press the left knob again to select arc force. So we're going to do that. You see, right here, we can change the setting over here from 0 to 100. The arc force function maintains arc stability, controls potential arcs, and increases your weld depth. So if you are struggling to get weld depth, or your arc is just going all over the place, you can't get it to be consistent, that can be a setting you can go in and change. Looks like 60 is the default for that setting, so that if you need to change it, it is there. So those are the settings you have on stick mode. Now let's go ahead and switch over to manual MiG. Now this is where the screen really lights up, because of course MiG is where you have the majority of your settings. You are able to choose your wire diameter up here in the top left corner. Currently we are set at 0.035. We can change that over to 0.30 and 0.35 on the machine with that upper button right there. Now if we go down here to our gas selection, this is where we can select our gases. Right here is the flux mode. That's what you're using if you have flux wire, because you don't need gas, so it knows not to use it. And you can go all the way over here, which is CO2, 100%. You can do your mixed gas, and of course you can do argon for aluminum. So that's where you would change those settings depending on which one you're in need of. And then if we go over to aluminum, you also have the option of 0.045 up here in your wire size at the very top there. And in CO2, you've got 0.23, but you also have over here in the mixed gas as well. So those are all your options for wire size and how you get to them depending on what kind of welding you're doing and what kind of gas you're using. I would like to see a flux option for 0.04 because I have had that wire before and I've really liked it actually, but this machine does not have that. Another nice feature that is on this particular machine is the inching, which you can see over there on the right hand side of the screen. Right here you've got a button. This is for feeding wire, so when you hit that button, it feeds wire, and you can see how much it feeds. So, alright, so in the manual MIG mode, of course, you can control your feed speed, your inches per minute, all the way up to 269, down to 78, and then you can change your voltage, which goes all the way from 12 volts all the way up to 26. So it's a very nice wide range of settings there. What you can do is you can press the right knob here in order to change the inductance setting, which goes from -10 all the way up to +10. And what that'll do is that it will help reduce splatter, producing a softer arc, and help wetting out your weld. So that might be useful if you're getting an excessive amount of splatter, more than you're expecting. Maybe you can try changing, right there, try changing that inductance and playing with it to see what it does. Now, if we switch over to Synergic MIG, using our weld mode button, you can see we still have our control over our feed speed, and whenever we change that, the voltage changes on its own. So YesWelder has programmed this. They've figured out approximately what works best for inches per minute as compared to the voltage when you are welding, MIG welding, and they call that Synergic MIG. So you just adjust the feed speed and the voltage adjusts themselves. Now of course, if you decide, let's say you start welding, it's not quite right between one setting and the next, then what you can do is you can come over here to this knob and you can adjust it by up to 3 volts in either direction, negative or positive. That way, if you feel like your weld is just not quite right, you can play with it a little bit. If you need more than that, you just switch over to your manual MIG and you can do whatever you want from there. Now, this mode also has the inductance, which again can reduce splatter and help with that if you're struggling with splatter. Alright, and the last setting we're going to go over is for a aluminum spool gun. So you got to be in your manual MIG mode, and then you want to change your gas down here to argon, so that's what you use in aluminum, and then you want to change your wire size to whichever size wire you're using. Then also what you have to do is you come down here to spool gun, you click that, you get this little graphic right here that tells you it's in spool gun mode, and then it will work with your spool gun. Once you do that, then you can just go and along your merry way and weld whatever you need. First of all, you have the MIG lead. It's a 10-foot lead, which is longer than all their other machines that I've used so far. It's a very good length. You're able to make nice long stretches at a time if need be without moving your machine. It comes with a very high quality MIG gun. I'm going to get more into that a little later. And it uses a Euro style plug to actually attach to the machine, which means that the 205DS Pro is compatible with any other Euro style plug MIG guns or accessories such as spool guns. One thing I noticed right away when I pulled this out of the package was this nice big strain relief, and it actually has a swivel joint in it as well, which is really good. So on my other welder, such as this one here, which is the Flux 135 Pro, it's got a little rubber strain relief, but let's be honest, that's not going to do a whole lot. No swivel, it's just a loose fit where just everything goes into the back of the gun. So this one here, you can easily kink like that, which could affect the feed and different things like that. Now granted, I should say I've never had that problem with this, but it could happen. Whereas this one here, much heavier duty. That there is the tightest I can bend it. If I really forced it, maybe I could go further, but I don't want to break something. So, but this here is going to be realistic, like it's fighting me to get that far. That's going to keep your lead at the correct angle so that the wire can feed through without issues, without impediment. So that is very important and definitely needed on a heavier duty machine. There's a couple big differences if you compare these two, right? Flux 135 Pro, same exact one on the YWM 160, but they're more hobbyist grade, MIG gun as opposed to their pro level MIG gun. They're very different, as you can see. This one here is just a hard plastic, very square body. It gets the job done, it works. It can get a little tiring to hold if you're doing a lot of welding. That's my only complaint about it. One thing that it does have that I like is it has this little hook on the back. This one does not. That's okay. That's not a deal breaker for sure. So, this is square bodied, right? Just molded plastic, hard plastic. The Pro version here is ergonomic. It's curved and fits the hand. As you can see here on the grip, where your thumb goes around to the trigger, it gets narrower, which means your finger, sorry, not your thumb, your index finger. Your index finger stays straighter and doesn't have to bend quite as much in order to pull that trigger. The over-molded handles, they're rubberized, so it's easy to grip, so even if your gun was slightly damp or something, you wouldn't lose grip on it, which I think that would be kind of hard to do anyway, but it's a nice feature to have. And of course, if you are in a third world country where you don't wear welding gloves, it's just more comfortable on your skin. The other really nice thing about this is the trigger itself. So the switch that is in this particular MIG gun is much more sensitive. So you don't have to push the trigger as hard in order to get it to activate, which is again another thing that can help with fatigue. The more pressure you have to exert with your finger, the more tiring it is, and the more fatigued you can get and the more sore you can get. You may not think you can get sore just pushing a button, but trust me, if you are welding for long periods of time, you most certainly can. So this here is a very comfortable MIG gun to use, extremely comfortable, easy to hold. You don't even have to really think about holding it at all. It's just very natural. It's very naturally shaped to the hand. Other than that, it's a pretty basic MIG gun. Same setup as everyone else. Nothing else extraordinary. It's exactly what you would expect out of a MIG gun. It works really well, and I was very happy with it in all my testing. Let's take a look at the stinger that it comes with. I have not used it yet on this machine. I primarily do flux core welding. It's just what I'm most familiar with. Now what I noticed about it is it's just a lot beefier than their lower model welders come with. It's very strong. I noticed that this is a taller spring, or a taller lever here, right? Their other ones are shorter on the Stinger. It's a much taller lever, and it's also got a much stronger spring inside. It's a lot harder to open it up, which is good because that means it'll have more holding power. And of course, other than that, it's pretty standard. It's your standard Stinger. Again, it's a 10-foot lead, which is fantastic. Of course, it comes with a nice owner's manual. That's one thing I do like about the YesWelders, is even though they might be considered a Chinese knockoff brand or whatever, I've seen people refer to them like that online, their quality is really good, even down to their manuals. Their manuals are very well written. It's in good, proper English. You can tell an actual native English speaker at least approved these manuals. And they are really good. Anytime I've ever had a question, I've been able to go to their manual and have found the answer. So, very nice manuals. May seem minor, but that can really be important. By default, you get one feed roller in the machine, and then you get 3 others here. Now, this is one thing that's a little different from their other welders. They actually come with different shaped rollers. I'm going to go here their manual to make sure I get this correct. Right, so it comes with a V knurl groove and a .023 and a .030, a W knurl groove with a 0.3 and a 0.35. They have a U knurl groove and a 0.35 and 0.45, and a V knurl groove and a 0.3 and a 0.35, which is the one that's already on the machine. So the V groove in 0.3, 0.35 is the one that's installed on the machine according to the manual. So, comes with all those rollers. I know that the U groove roller is usually used with the aluminum welding wire. I haven't used that yet, so I can't say how well it works, but that leads us into the next thing. It also comes with a graphene feed tube, again, so that you can feed aluminum wire through your regular MIG gun if you choose to do that. Replace the steel one that comes in it. I'm assuming it's steel, I haven't opened it up yet. Steel one that's in it with this graphene one should make it easier for the aluminum wire to feed through. Me personally, I'm probably not going to use this because they also sent me the spool gun, so I'm just going to use that. So for now, this will sit on my shelf, but it is really nice that they include this by default. They give you a little wrench here to change out the contact tips on your MIG gun, and of course, they come with a gas hose, which is wonderful. So, this is another thing that the YWM-160, even though it has a gas port, it does not come with its own gas hose. This one does, and it's an 8-foot hose, so it's plenty long, and it's just your standard gas hose. Nothing really I can praise about that. So, let's take a look at the ground bleed. So this here, this is actually my only complaint about this machine, only complaint that I've found so far, let me put it that way. This here is your ground clamp. Now, I don't know if this is just my ground clamp or if this is just indicative of what they normally ship with these machines, but this one feels really chinky. I will say it does have a good strong spring, right? So it's got nice strong spring. It's gonna have a good bite. But take a look at that right there. Look how far those jaws can move. Look at this right here. I'm gonna see if it'll focus. I can just do that and it just moves on me. This is not at all like their other ground clamps. For example, this is the ground clamp for the Flux 135 Pro, which is a much cheaper welder, and it feels a lot more sturdy. It has the same spring to it, but it doesn't have the same flex, right? This one here, I can maybe move it a millimeter, if that much, either side. This one here, I can move about a 1/4 inch either direction. So, if I look at it, like this one here, the rivet in the middle that holds the two halves together appears to be fully formed, very well done. This one here also appears to be fully formed, but it appears to be a little too long. So, I don't know if this one just happened to make it past here. If I hold it up there, I'm not sure if that'll focus. Don't think it will, but it's just sticking proud. I don't know why it's like this. Perhaps it just happened to make it past their quality control, they just didn't notice it. I hope this is not what they're sending with all their 205DS Pros, because this ground clamp really is kind of lackluster. It just has way too much play in it, and I'm just not a fan. So, me personally though, I'm gonna switch it out. Where did it go? Here we go. I'm gonna switch it out with one of these magnetic ground clamps, because I just prefer that style anyway. But that's not a very good look when you pay 400 bucks for a welder and you come with a ground clamp like this. So hopefully it was just a one-off. If your 205DS Pro came with a ground clamp, let me rephrase that, your 205DS Pro definitely came with a ground clamp. But let me know down in the comments below if you have one of these welders, what your ground clamp looks like. I'd be interested. Alright, so the very last thing that comes in the box with your welder is going to be a converter that'll go from the 220 plug that is attached, that is on the welder itself, converted over to the 110 plug. The machine can run off 110 or 220. Right now I have it running off 110. Alright, so that's a look at everything that the machine comes with, all the components and accessories. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and try some welding with it. Just want to jump in here real quick. I'm working on filming the review video for the 205DS Pro that you're watching right now. And I just wanted to remind you guys, if you're enjoying this video, if you're finding it interesting, funny, whatever, however you're getting enjoyment out of it, please do consider liking the video. It tells me and it tells YouTube that this video is worth your time. These videos take a long time for me to do. They take a lot of effort, and they're very time consuming. There's really no other way to put it. So a like is a very simple, free way that you guys can show your support. Please do, if you are interested in seeing more like this, consider subscribing to my channel. So let's go and jump back into the review of the YesWelder 205DS Pro. Alright, so we're just going to run a couple test beads real quick here on this 1/8 inch angle iron. I've opened up the shipping container here, so I've got plenty of ventilation. I'm going to turn some fan-ons right now. There we are. Not sure if you guys can hear those or not, but they are running. Yeah, so we're on Synergic MiG, and we are running 0.35 wire, and of course we're on the flux gasless setting. And we are running on 110 volts right now. So let's go ahead and lay a couple practice beads right here, and we'll see how it performs. So that right there is the weld. That looks pretty decent. Not too bad for one of my welds. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. I don't think I need it quite as hot as it is running. But other than that, I don't see any porosity or any undercut. So I'm pretty happy with that. Just going back you guys up here, and we will do another test weld. I'm gonna go and turn the feed speed down to 198, which brings the voltage down to 19 volts. Alright, so here's weld number 2. Had a little bit of a rough start there in the beginning. It was my own fault, so you have a slight porosity right there. but the rest of the weld, again, looks pretty good. I would definitely say that weld will hold. Okay, so these are our test welds here. This was the first one we did, the second one, and this is the third one. We already covered the first two. This third one here looks pretty good. I slowed down a little bit as I was going, and I am pretty happy with it. Fourth one here, you look at that, that looks fairly good. I think that maybe I was moving a little fast. You can see there's some pretty deep V shapes here instead of the semicircles that you like to see. And same thing with this one here. I slowed down a little bit on these last two, and they look pretty darn good. Now, there is a little bit of porosity right here. Alright, so there is the welding, flux core welding with the 205 DS Pro. If you want to take a look at the back side there, you can see the heat marks on the back, so we definitely wouldn't have had any problem with penetration. It's a very easy machine to use. Again, I'm using the Synergic MiG mode, where it automatically adjusts the settings per the wire feed speed that you put, and it worked great. Alright, so while we have the machine out, I'm just going to go ahead and try a little stick welding with it. It's not something I use very often, so they're probably not going to look nearly as good as the flux core welds there did, but we might as well test it while we have it out. So let's go and set up for that. Okay, so the process to switch over to stick welding from your MiG gun is very simple. You just simply unplug the MiG gun electrode, which is plugged into my DC negative here just a second ago, and then plug your stinger in. I'm plugging my stinger into positive, ground is negative. I'm using 6013's polarity, doesn't really matter on those. But here on the machine, what we're going to do is we are going to go to weld mode right here, this button, and we're going to switch over to stick. And then I referenced my welder settings chart over there that they provide, and they suggested going for 120 amps for 1/8 inch material, so that's what we're going to go with. Now, one thing you want to make sure that you are aware of if this is your first time stick welding is there's no throttle. So as soon as this stick touches that metal, it's going to start welding. So just be aware of that. So what I'm seeing here, like I mentioned, I've not done very much stick welding, but they're really high welds here, and then they dig in at the very end. So either I needed to linger a little longer here, or maybe it's too hot, but I don't think it is because of how high these are down here. So I think probably I'm just lifting too quickly and not lingering long enough there at the end of the weld. So I'm just not putting enough filler material in. Anyway. This is not a video on learning how to stick weld. I'll figure that out on my own time. But as far as stick welds go, these certainly are, especially this one here is probably one of the better stick welds I've ever put down. This one over here, I would definitely consider that a more of a booger instead of a weld, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, as far as stick welds go, I mean, this is the best I've ever done, so no complaints from me on the 205 DS Pro. Alright, so those stick welds. Those are nothing to be proud of. I know that. But as far as my stick welds go, because I've probably burned maybe 3 sticks in my life, with that being the third, those aren't terrible. So I'm not really going to complain. I'll say this. This machine, alright, so this last weld I did, this one right here, it's still a little hot, so I'm not going to touch it. That one right there, that is definitely the nicest stick weld I've ever laid. So this machine is certainly not holding me back at all as a complete and total amateur. So I think it's going to do quite well for stick welding. So using this machine, obviously I've used it way more than this right here. This past weekend I welded a giant 10-foot patch onto the side of my shipping container, just to cover up a series of holes that was along the bottom. And I used this machine to weld that whole entire thing. Not only did it go really quick, it was very easy to do because with that synergic welding mode, synergic MIG, yeah, they call it synergic MIG welding mode here on the very end, it took care of everything and it was beautiful the whole way. It was very smooth, very easy. So am I going to recommend the YesWelder 205DS Pro welder? Absolutely I am. It's easily the best welder I've ever used, and I would be super confident if I were to put this up against any other big name brand welder that's out there on the market. Comparable welder against this, I guarantee you this would do just as good, maybe even better. Very, very happy with some of the upgrades that this machine has over some of their other, the not pro line. I'm very serious about this. This MIG gun, it's going to be hard for me to use any other MIG gun because this one is so comfortable. It's very nice to use. It's a great welder. I really don't have anything negative to say other than that ground clamp issue. I would recommend it if you're in the budget for it. I think it was between $400 and $500 for this machine. I forget exactly. If that's in your budget, I would absolutely recommend this machine to you. You will never outgrow this machine unless you're doing some really serious welding work out there. So anyway, that wraps it up for today. I appreciate every single one of you for sticking around to the end of the video. If you are here, drop a comment down below. Let YesWelder know how much you enjoy seeing content like this from me. They've been very generous sending me this stuff to test, and the whole entire time they've never expected anything out of it other than they just want me to make a video. YesWelder is very social media conscious. They like to see their stuff on social media, and they just been like, hey, do you want this? Make a video on it. I say sure. That's it. They don't pester me, they don't do nothing. They are not in it to try to force positive reviews. And I personally believe that's because they know they have quality stuff. Thank you again, YesWelder. We really appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, this is Nathan, signing off.